Today I'm working on 2 black canvases inspired by a painting I saw by Anca Gray. I'm just laying out the vintage papers I'm going to use and the stencils and trying to figure out where I want the placement. And I'm going to start with some interference paint by Deco Arts in purple and teal, which is a little bit of a deviation from the original painting, but I wanted to have just that, pick up that teal that was in a couple of the vintage pieces of paper. And most of these are stencils that I've cut using my silhouette. And I'm just using the teal, and then I'm going to come back in with the purple. And then I'm going to move the papers and kind of do the same stencil on the opposite canvases. And now I'm just using regular white craft paint through various stencils to get the white on white. And I'm just wiping back some of the bleed. And you'll see that I'm going to use the black acrylic paint to do some subtractive work later and clean up some of those areas. Especially on this big stencil here, I end up taking a lot of it back out when I decide it's too much, using the black. But first I'm just kind of cleaning it up with a baby wipe. And then I'm just using, this is a Deco Art stencil, old French script. And then after I dry that, I'm going to adhere all my vintage papers with just some decoupage, a gel medium by Deco Arts. And I'm referring to my layout that I had taken earlier with my phone, just kind of remind me of the placement that I had wanted to use. And now what I'm doing is adding some stencil. This is a distressed Harlequin by Deco Arts. And I'm just adding some black back over some of the white papers. And now you can see where I'm using the black paint and a small brush and kind of cleaning up and working on removing some of the spillage and cleaning up around the stencils. And eventually on this left side I'll take out quite a bit of the larger squares. And there's a quote from a music sheet. And I'm just brightening some of those white circles from the pebbles. And this is modeling paste mixed with some white paint. And I'm going to put this through the rose stencil. Alright, now I'm going to let that one set to the side and work on the second canvas. And I'm kind of repeating, they're going to hang together, so I'm kind of repeating some of the same stencils. So I'm starting with the circles again. And going in and cleaning up. And I decide I'm going to add some stenciling on top of this piece of vintage paper. And I'm going to add the papers back on with the gel medium again. And I'm trying to determine my exact placement of where I want everything. And then I'm adding the quote again for this canvas, just a piece of music paper. And now I'm going to use the white paint and the modeling paste and add the rose back on to this canvas. And I'm adding some of the French script. And then in my impatience here, I forget about the wet modeling paste, and I have to clean that up a little bit. But I just clean it up a little bit with the black paint on the edges, and then I lay the stencil back down and smooth it over. And now what I'm doing is adding some uh, sewing tissue from a pattern. I liked the text and some of the darker beige color. I thought it gave it more interest without obscuring any of the other papers. And then I'm going to go back to the first canvas and do the same thing. And then you can see I'm coming in here and adding some of the edges and detail back on some of the white stencils. And then I'm coming back in and adding some of the black in between the modeling paste that's dried. And then after I'm done, I'll go back over that with the interference paint again to give that kind of an iridescent green and purple in between the petals. And it really just kind of helped it stand out. And then I finally put a coat of a gloss varnish on them to finish them.